Can you imagine being a kid on a high school trip and being held up at the border in front of your friends? That recently happened to Laval, Quebec's Kian Moshedian.
I wasn't really understanding what was going on. I was devastated.
The 17-year-old, a Canadian citizen born in Iran, says U.S. border agents stopped him as soon as they scanned his passport and questioned him at length. They went through his phone, his luggage. A border agent drove him back to the Canadian side.
He took me and the tour guide in the police car, in the back of the police car with the grills and no door handles and stuff. That was a weird experience.
Kian says officers explained it was because his father had served under Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps over 20 years ago. His father went to pick him up.
I was just crying all the way there, just crying that, why my son? What did he do wrong?
The IRGC is one of two branches of Iran's military. It was created in 1979 after the Islamic Revolution. It has ties with groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, and the US designated it as a terrorist group in 2019. That's when many Iranian Canadians across the country started having problems at the border. But military service is mandatory in Iran, and people can't always choose which branch they'll be serving.
If you don't do your military service, you cannot get a passport, you cannot leave the country, you cannot get married, you cannot buy a property, you cannot do any transaction.
For years, Canada's federal government has resisted calls to designate the IRGC as a whole as a terrorist organization. It argued the move would affect low-level people who were forced into conscription, like Moshedian.
The Iranian regime must be held accountable.
But at a ceremony for the victims of the civilian plane taken down by the IRGC in 2020, Justin Trudeau suggested his government is looking at other options.
We will continue our work, including continuing to look for ways to responsibly list the IRGC as a terrorist organization.
That worries Moshedian.
Are they going to tell me, oh, so sorry, we have to take back your citizenship, we are going to kick you out? What are they going to tell me?
Views towards banning the IRGC as a whole are mixed in Canada's Iranian community.
The terrorist list designation is necessary to actually deal with intimidation, security, and financial crimes inside the country, and prevents ex-human rights violators, ex-criminals from actually being able to use Canada to their advantage.
Jubin says Canada could ask to see a conscription card showing the end of military service, which he says is proof that someone hasn't served the IRGC voluntarily. Meanwhile, the US's IRGC terrorist designation has already had an impact on the Moshedian family, banning Amir from the country, and the family says travel in general has also gotten more difficult. But none of this explains why Kian, who has never served in Iran's military, would be denied entry. We put that question to the US State Department. At the time of making this video, they had yet to respond.